You are never going to buy a property for the rest of your life. How does that make you feel? Stay tuned. Let's talk about it.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael BURGIO, Mark Novak, episode 438. You're never going to buy a property. How does it make you feel? It's a good topic. Welcome, Mark. It's a bit of a different one. It does.
It hurts when you just say it.
And I think what really, I'll bring up this graph just quickly because I think a lot of people won't sort of believe it, but there was a post on LinkedIn that I saw which to save a 20% deposit for Sydney, I'm not sure the purchase price they're basing it on, so it's like 11 years. And I think if we all look at a lot of how our society works, not many people are that consistent at anything. So for 11 years for one goal, I think a lot of people will struggle to do so. And what's that? If that purchase price is 500 grand to buy somewhere like Northern Beaches, it could be 20 years. So half your working life or a third of your working life to buy a property. So if that's the case, what does that mean? What can you do? Do you just blow your money frivolously, live week to week? What's your thoughts, Mark?
You know, it's just one of those things where, you know, we get drowned with you should buy a property from the age of 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, all the way up until you buy something. It's a little bit of one of those questions of when are you going to get married or when are you going to have your first child or when are you going to have your next child. It's it's an expectation of society that a lot of people have imposed on them, put on them, not necessarily right. Why do you have to buy a place? What is the social pressure around it? You know, I remember reading something on John Simons, who started Aussie Home Loans, sold it for a fortune to Commonwealth Bank. John never believed in sleeping on your money, so much so that he didn't have a principal place of residence, a home, until he was in his like mid-50s, 60, I think he was. So
he chose to rent.
I think the problem. Yeah, so, you know, there's the old adage also that you're sleeping on your money, that a lot of people have a premium property or a really good property that they just sleep there, that, you know, they have their money sleeping, they don't have rent coming in on that investment. So it's a really interesting thing that we're forced to think.
Yeah, and I sort of like to compare, say, to the US, where they're not, especially after we spoke about Simon Polito, they're not they're not like us where it's that property buying, capital growth, sleep on your money, long game. They've got a lot more of property's a lot more transactional, and I don't want to say more entrepreneurial, but I think they would, growing up, it was more let's create an idea, create a business, where our generation or Australia, we're like buy a home, sit on your, basically that's your way to create wealth. And in America, it's create a business, and two very different ones. So how can people make that mix? In Australia, I think maybe investing in shares is probably a big way where as long as you're using your money correctly, so instead of blowing it on weekends, you're buying shares, but you may not be buying property. Because at the end of the day, it's a strange concept because a lot of the time you're borrowing huge amounts of debt. So is it better off to get smaller gains in the share market where you're not paying interest and then capital gains over the long haul than property? Because if you borrow, I looked at it the other day, if you borrow $1 million, aren't you paying back double that over the 30-year term or close to?
It's a lot of money. It's a hell of a lot of money, but you know what? There's a couple of really important things to consider. One, pro is that it is tax-free money. There's not much in Australia that you can actually do that doesn't involve, there's not much money you can make in Australia that doesn't involve paying tax to the ATO for. Generally, I can't think of anything else that you can do that you don't have to pay tax for when you make money. But property ownership is tax-free if you live there. As a pro, that means that you're going to buy something for $500,000, it can grow to $1 million, and the tax department doesn't want any of that money. That's a pro. But to go back to what you said, Michael, I think as long as you're doing the right thing with your money, and yes, you're paying a lot of interest with property, but I think if you're investing your money on a sure thing, not a that's part of the goal with property, that there is an assurance that it's going to perform well. Sometimes a stock or a business, you can lose it all.
Yeah, and the tax-free thing, yes, on the one property, but there's a lot of I wouldn't say, well, once you buy one, the pressure is then to buy 2, 3, and then you don't have that tax benefit. But I think we've got a very strong, we just, capital growth. A lot of other countries don't have capital growth like we do on property. And I'd love to learn more on the economic reasonings behind that on a lot deeper level rather than immigration and all that stuff. But that's what we've got behind us. And I think that's why we're a lot more, rather than start a business, buy into business, buy property. It's been proven since we did a post of property prices from 1971. Houses have gone from anywhere 26,000 to 2 million. So why wouldn't you just be jumping on the bandwagon, especially if nothing else changes?
So I'd love to know what our audience thinks. Guys, if you've got any comments, this is a live show. Let us know what you think about the fact that you're never going to buy a property the rest of your life. That concept, it does go against the concept of what we're always spruiking, which is buy, get in. But there's definitely some merits in that. Now, another thing as well, we're not built to buy property.
Joined in, that's off like 11 years to save for a 20% deposit. And I don't know the purchase value. It could be a lot higher if you want to buy Northern Beaches. So that sort of stems where some people won't be able to keep up the consistency for 11 years. Like that's, you get married, it's going to chip away your savings, wedding.
I think we've got some comments there as well. But guys, another thing as well, we're not built to work, and we're not built to buy property. We're built to live. So I think that there's definitely a certain sector of all people in the market that it's a beautiful thing just to, if you want to be an artist and you just want to paint, what the hell does property ownership got to do with that? Do you know what I mean? So there's this element of like, why are we so drummed in and focused to just like, oh mate, we just got to buy something, you just got to do the right thing, you just got to listen to what everyone's saying, just got to buy. Living and breathing and what life has to offer is not just about property ownership, and I accept it's our job and we love it. What's that Mel got to say?
Then I think it was on the principal place of residence. Then you get people that move every 3 to 5 years, banking on capital growth on your principal place of residence. You know what I also think as well, the pressure to buy is because we have a society that works, and it's also an easier way for parents to know their children are disciplined, putting them into debt so they've got the responsibility. Like there's so many benefits to having that responsibility more than an investment side of things. Seed planting. Yeah.
It's almost I think for a parent, like on the back of what you just said, Michael, it's like plant a seed for later, plant a tree for later, a seed that'll grow later, rather than just spending. And I think that's the government's philosophy as well. They want people to self-support themselves when they come into retirement, and property ownership allows them, and that's why the government's giving these tax incentives to do that. Something you remind me of before, Michael, on how spoilt we are on capital growth. We are definitely a country that makes an enormous amount, one of the highest amounts of property growth through our lifetime. To give you an idea, I remember I was in Alaska on a tour bus, and I think you've heard this one, Michael, and everyone
Yep.
was saying, hey, how's property prices doing here, to the tour guide that was on the mic? And the tour guide goes, this has been a great, great market in Alaska. She said, to give you an idea, I bought my house for $89,000. And I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And I'm thinking, $89,000. And she goes, now worth, she says something like $97,000. And everyone's like, wow, you've made like 10% in a 7-year period, whereas Sydney almost does double in that in a 10-year period. And I thought to myself, we're a lucky country.
100%. And just off Admal's comment, it would be interesting to know what percentage of borrowers put in a 20% deposit. I reckon the trend is now growing towards 5 to 10%. 100% agree, which will be interesting over 10 years. But I posted something a month ago, which it was basically the value of property was, say, 10 trillion, and the value of debt to property was like 1 trillion. It was something outrageous, because I've been seeing a huge trend of smaller deposits over the last couple of years, which can be unsettling, especially if it continues for another 20 years. That will definitely be very, I'm just trying to I might find it after the show and I'll tag you in it, Admal. But it was, basically, I reckon there's a few people on LinkedIn, like a Tom Hawley, Christian Stevens, Danny Doff. They always post some really good stats. I haven't seen something about 5% borrowing percentages, but it would be interesting. But even though it is a lot compared to the whole market, there's probably 90% of properties with 90% of property value with no debt. So when people think of a bust, this is where I always sort of push. I don't give much credit to that argument, because most owners have no debt on their property. When you compare 10 trillion value to 1 trillion debt, it's a very stable economy. Even if the prices do go down, people are not going to rush to sell, because they're not going to have the pressure of repayments. Where properties declining, where a bust would cause the reaction of people rush selling is maybe people who have a high debt volume, but the majority of people have no debt or a low debt volume. Therefore, a dip in the market, 10, 20%, wouldn't create that chain reaction. Obviously, to some people it would. A lot of people have bought in the last couple of years, but it wouldn't have the property market tumbling down like the media like to throw out every couple of years.
So, Michael, before we sign out, you're never going to buy a property the rest of your life. Your conclusion on the comment?
Then look, if you then look for something else with the same sort of end goal. Is it creating a business? Is it shares? Something. You got to do something.
Yep. My comment on that would be, you're never going to buy a property the rest of your life. Exactly off the back of what you're saying. In addition, make sure it's safe. So, if you are going to do your business or you are going to do your stock, in that first part of your investment career, just make sure it's a safe one. You can't afford to be speculative on that investment. Make sure it's a tried and proven investment like property on the first part of your investing. So these are people that are between 17 up to 35. You sort of want to get that shit right up front. In addition to that, happy Easter to the Greek community, to the Serbian community, to the Russian community. It was the Orthodox Easter yesterday.
Happy Easter.
I got really fat at my mum's. In addition to that, congratulations to the people that bought a 1.9 acre property from us on Saturday night at auction. It was a very long negotiation, went into the night, and 4.8 bought them a beautiful house. If you're interested in having a look, 7 Morgan was the property that we sold on the northern beaches, really close to the beaches, really close to the city. Like 10 minutes to the beach, 25 minutes to the city, and a beautiful setting. It feels like you're in the country. That sold. And out of interest, Michael, you asked the question this morning, so other people must be interested. The people came from the Queenscliff house to have a bit of a farm life on the northern beaches.
Yeah, and it's a very unique position because, like, basically 2 streets back is your normal 600, I don't know, cryptocurrency. Yeah, that's going to be the next thing, crypto, because crypto, Bitcoin, China are going to create a digital yen they're about to release. There's theories that the US are doing the same, inflating their dollar and then creating it with the digital dollar. So currency.
Too little, too late, I reckon.
Elon is backing it. Yeah. Have you heard of Elon's internet thing with satellites? Satellites go up and then you got your Wi-Fi. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's 55 US a month, and it's quick. It's quick.
Yeah, it's like normal is like I don't know, but technology is going to be huge. But the thing I want to just to wrap up what we were saying with business, I think, Mark, especially with a lot of the access we do to the commercial market, how many great businesses we see, and they've never bought a property, but they've created a good and they've just smashed it. And then they come to buying property at, say, 40 years old after 20 years of a successful business, and then they buy property. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything
Just
right
follow,
or wrong.
I think just follow your passion, guys. Just, do what you love, and at the end of the day, the money will come. But also just don't be silly. If you can be paying money to yourself instead of a landlord, and it's not a particularly hard move to do, then do that as well. So yeah.
Alrighty, that's a wrap.
Everyone have a great week.
Cheers, bye.